This morning, I will be the voice of science. Science has revealed that we live in an amazing universe. It's filled with such wonders as galaxies, black holes, neutron stars. Even if it turns out there are not angels and there's no extrasensory perception, we can't astrally project or we're not reincarnated, even if that all falls through, we still, according to the methods of modern science, live in an amazing, vast, and variety filled universe. So, what is the approach of science? It's distinguished from religion and the New Age approach in that everything is tested against experiment. In religion, you can have a personal revelation that strikes you with the force of truth. In science, if you cannot communicate that to other people in a way that encourages them to perform the same experiment and get the same result, if it cannot be externally communicated, then it doesn't count as science. The worst thing you can tell a scientist is, you're not even wrong. It's okay to be wrong. We offer only provisional truths, only steps along the way towards truth. We never claim that we have found the final answer because there are always more experiments to make in the future. So imagine that you grew up in Atlanta and you had never left the city. That's a little bit what it's like to be a human being on the earth. Your experiences are limited, and so your ideas will be limited too. Imagine everyone around you, nobody you knew had ever left Atlanta, and then one day you get on a private jet and you travel all over the world. You would find that on the opposite side of the world, when it's noon here, it's midnight there. That in the southern hemisphere, the seasons are reversed. Very close to the North Pole, where Santa Claus lives, for 6 months of the year at a time, the sun is in the sky. That would just blow your mind. That might force you to become a mystic. What does it even mean for the sun not to rise and set, and yet for it to be a day and another day and another day for 6 months? So it's the same sort of thing. None of us here have traveled near the speed of light. None of us here have fallen into a black hole, and I hope you never do. It's probably going to be a very painful sort of experience, depending on the black hole you fall into. But don't do it. Don't try to find out. So when you have different experiences, they can happen differently from what you expect. And so when we get down to the size of an atom, we start to experience the world of quantum mechanics. And there's a lot that's kind of filtered through to people about quantum mechanics. But speaking as a scientist, I want to remind people that although it often takes a mystical language to talk about this in everyday terms, as it would for somebody returning from world travel to live in the town where no one ever left, that quantum mechanics is based on science. It gives it a kind of authority, and science deserves some authority. After all, we put people on the moon. Science works. But at the same time, I don't want people to attach that authority to non-scientific ideas, to claim that because scientists have developed quantum mechanics, that Buddhist philosophy is therefore proved to be correct. There might be some overlap, but here's one important lesson from this morning for me, which is that do not tie your religious beliefs to scientific results, because those scientific results will change as soon as the next experiment comes in. If something is deeply felt, not on the basis of scientific evidence, but on a personal need, you have to come to terms with that need and not attach falsely the science as the reason that you believe in that. Okay, so quantum mechanics, it's not what we're used to. It describes the world as a probabilistic way. Everything is made of both waves and particles at the same time. Okay, does not compute, you might be thinking, and you're right. Well, it does compute in the literal sense. We can calculate what's going to happen in any sort of situation. But to get a picture of it has failed for everyone, for every scientist. We have no real intuitive picture of quantum mechanics. So what does it mean spiritually? What sort of world do we live in? We're still trying to make sense out of the mathematics and the experiments. But I do want to caution everyone outside of science who makes use of the science that if you try to encapsulate it in a philosophical bumper sticker kind of statement like, yes, perception influences reality, that is not getting to the full essence of quantum mechanics. It includes that, but you have to be clear about what you mean, about how perception is affecting reality. Quantum mechanics was based on experiments where different colors and brightnesses of light were shining on different metals and electricity would come out. Experiments where you would shine a beam of electrons on a crystal of nickel and the electrons would bounce back at certain angles. Experiments where beams of silver atoms were passing through magnetic fields in different directions and the silver beams got split up. Trying to understand those experiments is what gave us quantum mechanics. And so how much less quantum mechanics is going to apply to situations far removed from those experiments? Imagine you could go back in time to the scientists who did those experiments and you'd say, hey, perception influences reality. And they're going to say, well, yeah, but how exactly does this affect these silver atoms? In the same way, how exactly does perception influencing reality going to impact your life? Certainly not so far that you'll put on blindfolds and walk into traffic, I hope. Yeah, you might not be perceiving the traffic, but it's still there. So to understand quantum mechanics is more than simply those slogans. So what does quantum mechanics say? It's open to interpretation. Some people think that it says that our universe is this wave function, which is not really a thing in our ordinary sense. It's just a summary of our knowledge. So our universe is sort of built out of our understanding of knowledge itself. They're not separate things. Other people, and in fact I'm among this contingent, think that the equations of quantum mechanics make most sense if we actually live in spreading parallel universes. But I want to pull back for a moment. For those who are not scientists, sometimes the things that we say might seem like, yeah, this thing really hits me emotionally, but you've got to kind of grow with the science, and then you might find that something else that struck you as kind of minor is more at the heart of the matter.